Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you locally by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at Wild Wild West, Tropicana, and Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast is here. And, of course, the Eagles win makes things a lot brighter on a Monday. Geoff Mosher, how are you, my friend?
Oh, my day is always bright regardless, Mike. But, no, it is a great day. It's a good day. I'm good and good win. And how are you doing?
It was a good win. It feels good. And, obviously, there's a lot to unpack on this because of the way they did this. Again, they ran the football. They ran it with a lot of success. And, obviously, Nick Sirianni, are we convinced now that Sirianni has made the change? Is this the identity of the Philadelphia Eagles? Is he now looking at this team and understanding, hey, this is our path to victory?
Without a doubt. I mean, what I think you're seeing is two things that are important. One is that, and as you just mentioned, an identity is established. A coach is playing to the strengths of his team. The strength is the offensive line and the running game, and he's doing a great job over the last 3 weeks of recognizing that and adjusting accordingly. But what I think he's also doing is not just showing the other extreme. For example, the last 2 weeks, their running game was a mostly downhill style under center attack, whereas they came out against Denver, which has the sixth best rushing defense going into the game, and they didn't try to go under center and downhill it. They still were going to run, but they ran it from a lot of 11 personnel, from shotgun formations. So you saw an adjustment by Nick Sirianni to say, I'm not going to just do what I did last week and the week before and assume that's going to work. I'm going to be a good coach here. I'm going to come up with some schemes that I think are going to benefit my offense versus this particular defense. I'm going to get my quarterback on the run a little bit more to open up the defense. And I'm still going to keep my core philosophy of running the ball, but I'm going to open it up a little bit in the passing game. And that's good. I mean, that's what you're going to have to do, because eventually they're going to get into a situation this year, Mike, where the team, it could be New Orleans. They have a very good defense where that run game isn't going to come so easily. Or if they're stopping one variation of your run, you're going to have to figure out a way to run it differently. And so I thought the adjustment in how they ran was really important.
That's good breakdown by you there, Geoff Mosher. And, of course, I think one of the reasons you have to really look at as to why they can do this is because of the offensive line. And we talked about last week, well, Denver's got a much better defensive front. You might not be able to run the ball on them. This is what we do. You stop us. I like the fact that they did that. And their line, I thought, whipped Denver yesterday.
It really did, not to take away. I know Denver was struggling. They have a good run defense, but they lost about 3 inside linebackers over the last 2 or 3 weeks. They had to make a trade to get the guy from the Rams after they traded Miller or wherever they got him from. So they're a little bit hurting, but still, I think that they are a very stout defense, and they get a lot of good plays from guys who are not household names. You saw that guy, Gordon, or I forget his last name, but they have a couple of Shelby Harris. They got a couple of guys who you just never heard of, but they're stout and they're well coached by Vic Fangio. But you're right, when you've got the talent and you up front, and that's where the strength of the Eagles is, you can dictate what you want to do to an extent. And I thought that they did that. And I think that secondarily, this is why I like the win the most, Mike, is because there was adversity on each side of the ball. The offense did not really move the ball very well in the second half, and especially the third quarter. And then that's where your special teams came through with a block and where your defense came through with a fumble recovery, right? And defensively, they didn't do great the entire game. It looked like they're in the third quarter, they were going to get gashed. I mean, Denver ran 23 plays in the third quarter. The Eagles ran 7. But Darius Slay, Davion Taylor, obviously, combined for the big play that turns out to be a huge momentum swinging play. So the offense helped the defense helped the offense, and of course, special teams gets you the big block, and of course, Jake Elliott makes his field goals. That to me is the most complete game. The Atlanta game was great, blowout, right? The Lions game, great blowout, but I like this win more because it was in Denver where they hadn't won since '89, and because there was adversity that they had to overcome.
Yeah, and I know that they blitzed a lot, too. Denver came after. They were aggressive with their defense, and I thought that Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts did a really good job of remaining patient. I thought Hurts, there was 3 throws that really stood out, Jeff. It was the touchdown throw to Smith where he got out, made a throw. It was his throw, but both the pitch and the catch, both very well done. Smith makes a great play. That's exactly what you want to see from your first-round pick is, hey, it's up there, one-on-one, great coverage, I beat you, touchdown. But it was a really good throw. The throw to Watkins, who he's got to catch that ball, but where he put that and how he delivered it, where he took patience, stepped in, bang. And the throw to Goddard that got Goddard, he didn't get Goddard knocked out, but the play that Goddard, that's a play that I thought he doesn't make that play a couple weeks ago.
No, he doesn't. There's a 4th throw I'm going to bring in there, and it probably gets lost in the sauce. It was only like a 7-yard gain, but it was I think on the 2nd or 3rd possession. It was early because it was before Goddard got hurt. He actually made the catch where there was as you mentioned, the Broncos blitzed. They blitzed the nickel off the edge, and nobody accounted for it. And so Jalen was forced to his right, and it looked like one of those plays where he was either going to get sacked for a 10-yard loss or have to throw it out of bounds. And he kind of lofted it high in the air toward the sideline, and Goddard one-handed it right along. And I thought, man, that was a really nice touch while you're kind of going out of the pocket to just make sure only Dallas Goedert could get it. And it was a really great catch by Goddard as well. But you're right. The Quez Watkins drop in the end zone is really unfortunate because that might have been Jalen Hurts' best throw as a Philadelphia Eagle. I mean, I know Watkins had the corner beat by a step, but the safety was coming over. He had to put it right on the outside shoulder there where Quez should have made the play, no doubt.
Yeah, that was a situation where he stepped into a pocket that was there for him, and he didn't. You know, there's been so many times where the play happens and then there's a little pressure and he just gets out of there. I thought he did a much better job of just hanging in there this week and delivering. I mean, you could see, people have questioned, does he have the arm strength? I mean, he might not pump it 80 yards down the field, but he has every bit of been able to get the ball, 50, 60 yards where it needs to be. I think we saw that in a couple of instances this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we talk about arm strength. It's not almost every single quarterback in the NFL can throw the ball, 50, 60 yards. There's very few who can't get the ball that. It's just how it's how hard you can do it, how well you throw the out route that's 10 yards and can you zip it in there. But mostly guys like Drew Brees or Ryan Tannehill or, you can find some other guys who don't have the strongest arms in the world. They throw with great timing and anticipation. Phillip Rivers was never a strong arm guy. He just had amazing kind of feel for when and where to put the ball in certain situations. And I think Jalen Hurts is absolutely improving with his touch, with his staying in the pocket, with his timing. And you also saw, I forgot to mention this in the podcast, so I'm glad we're talking about it now. I think for the first time we saw him go to the line and make a few checks at the line of scrimmage and have some autonomy to change a play and for the better. So that's another really good development for him, too.
Geoff Mosher, Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com. Football at 4 here. So much to unpack on this, too, because I thought, look, I haven't been the guy saying that Devonta Smith is, awful, but I have had some questions on, hey, is he going to be that number one guy? And I don't know if that he's going to be, Julio Jones in his prime, but you saw the makings yesterday of a guy who seems like the game's slowing down for him a little bit.
Yeah, first of all, I don't know if any of us realized the extent that his elbow might have been an issue because he looked like a cyborg with that, brace on his arm. I mean, it was pretty wacky to see that
he was
thing.
J.J. Watting it out there.
Yeah, right. So, no, I think you're seeing the contested catch acumen that he was known for in college. It's a little bit different than the guys who are like 6'2", 220, but he can go up and get the ball. And you saw in the first few games of the season where he wasn't really physical through the entire route, but there's no question he was physical through the entirety of that route, as well as the one last week, the touchdown that he caught, which was an over that Jalen Hurts threw, and where he caught it compared to where he ended up was because he broke some tackles and got away from things and was physical. So you are seeing that. I think that this guy is I think the biggest thing about Jalen Hurts, Mike, and you and I have watched Eagles football for a long, long time now, right? we don't expect an Eagles receiver to make that kind of touchdown catch. And that's not just, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to like Macklin or Deshaun or Jason Avant, but when's the last time we saw an Eagles wide receiver go 30 yards down the field and come up with that ball?
I tweeted it yesterday. I said, I don't think I've seen a receiver do that since Alshon in the Super Bowl year.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I mean, Alshon did make a couple plays. He made a couple plays. That was what he was known for, though, is kind of, heighten the point of attack kind of stuff. That was one thing that
Let me amend that statement. Let me amend that to when's the last time the Eagles drafted a wide receiver who could make that play?
Good point. I know this is going to be a topic. What do they do with Sanders?
Yeah, I think that the way they're running the ball, if they can continue to run the ball and come out of games with 40 runs, there's no reason why Sanders can't have 15, Jordan Howard can't have 12 to 15, and Boston Scott can't have 10. Maybe that makes Gainwell the odd man out, but Wendell Smallwood was the odd man who was having a decent year, but he became the odd man out in 2017 when Jay Ajayi came along and paired with Corey Clement and LeGarrette Blount. It just happens, especially when you're start off as the lowest guy on the totem pole. Maybe it's Boston Scott who takes a little bit of a back seat. The one thing I can't comprehend is why people think that Miles Sanders doesn't belong to go back into this rotation because, quote unquote, either the coaches don't like him or he was responsible for their awful run game for the first 6 or 7 weeks. The guy's averaging 4.8 yards per carry. I get that there are some times where he'll lose a yard or two on some runs because he's shiftier like that, but you're still averaging 4.8 yards per carry. I think he can only add some dynamic ability to this running game.
Yeah, you hope so. I mean, look, if they are committed to doing what they've done, I'm very intrigued to see what Sanders does when given the opportunity. The question is, why did they not give him the opportunity? I mean, as you see the first 6 games, 17 runs per game, last 4, 35. So if you're going to give him the ball and an opportunity, who knows how much Howard's been great, but he doesn't have the breakaway speed that Sanders has.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you go back to that third quarter that I was talking about where the Broncos do a better job of stopping the run. The Eagles only run 7 plays. Miles Sanders is the type of guy you saw last year. Even when you're struggling, he can break one 60, 70, 80 yards. So even if your offense is struggling to generate rhythm and flow and march down the field, bam, he breaks one and he's gone, or he puts you in field position.
Just adds another element. Just adds another big play element that this offense kind of lacks right now. I mean, that big play is they still kind of plot their way down the field. I mean, they're running. To get a guy who can break one for 60, 70 yards, that really, changes the dynamics. Now, that also means your defense is out in the field a lot more. You and I talked a lot about the defense last week. I don't know, did John Gannon make adjustments? Did he make tweaks? Or is this just another example of, hey, they faced another quarterback who wasn't all that good, and they've been fine in those games? It's amazing to me, the yin and the yang. When they win, they give up about 10 points a game. When they lose, they give up 40.
Yeah. I don't want to lump Teddy Bridgewater into the same Jared Goff group or I'm trying to think of who else they beat this year, like Sam Darnold. Yeah, Bridgewater may not be great, but he's been pretty good this year, completing 70% of his passes. He's hot or cold. One thing we said on the pregame podcast, which turned out to be true, is for all of his accuracy, and he's very accurate, he does tend to have Carson Wentz-ish hesitancy once that pressure gets on him, where he looks a little disjointed, like he doesn't know what he wants to do with the football, and you saw that. And I did notice, and I haven't, the all 22 is not out yet, but it did look like the coverage was a little bit tighter. Not a lot. I don't know that they were pressing all up in wide receivers' faces, but it did look like the corners. And really, when we say corners, we're talking about Steven Nelson, because Slay already plays press, and Maddox isn't afraid to get up there either. But of those two guys, Maddox and Nelson probably played a little bit tighter. But again, I thought really the front 4 controlled the line of scrimmage. And I still don't understand why they couldn't have done that against the Chargers, because the Chargers had 2 guys out on their offensive line on the right side too. So to me, it's a little bit more of an indictment on the front 4, whether they decide to show up or not on any given week. But they certainly showed up in Denver.
They did. And you know who else I thought played a pretty good game with the linebackers? I thought it was just a nice, solid job. Edwards, Taylor, I thought did a good job. Those guys seemed to be making plays. They made tackles. They the second quarter for whatever reason, it was the same old passive. They're running all over you. There was openings in the zones, and I was like, oh, my God, this is going to be a painful game. They made those adjustments in the second half, I guess. For whatever reason, it looked a lot different in the first, third, and fourth. The second looked terrible.
Yeah, well, actually, the third was not very good either. Again, they drove the ball really well through the air and the ground in the third quarter. It's just that they had a blocked field goal, a touchdown negated by a penalty, and something else went wrong for Denver that I can't think of at the moment. But either way, like I said, they snapped the Eagles 23-7 in the third. I think the linebackers did a good job because they made some impactful plays. Obviously, Davion Taylor forcing 2 fumbles was big. But, Mike, the way you described their play and the kind of the defense is how I feel like we're going to talk about the Eagles' defense going forward, that even when they're doing a lot better, you're still going to get frustrated with a lot of from a talent standpoint, they're only going to be able to do so much. But it does show you that if the Eagles could get themselves a true 3-down linebacker who's a difference maker, and I'm not saying they have to use that first-round pick on. I know that's kind of a foreign concept for the team. But, anybody who's like a pretty good linebacker, that can make a pretty big difference. Same thing I say with a safety. Get yourself a safety who can play deep, post, and nickel. Like, again, Tyrann Mathieu is an extreme example. But anybody who can do that for you, who's pretty good and versatile, it could make such a big difference for this team.
Yeah, because, I don't know that Gannon did a whole heck of a lot differently in this game other than,
he didn't blitz that much this time either.
No, he didn't. Other than the fact that Bridgewater was 60%. You've been seeing guys complete at 80%, 75% on average, 60%. It was – you're thinking, what happened that he only completed 60% of his passes? That to me is the bewildering part.
There's a few things that as well, and then this game is the blowout in final score, right? But think about how it's 20-10 Eagles at half, and then the Broncos drive all the way down the field on their first possession of the third. They get a field goal blocked, which doesn't happen every day, right? Good for the Eagles. They did that. Then the Eagles go 3 and out. Broncos drive down the field, get a 20-yard touchdown, and it's called back from a penalty. So they got to settle for McManus' field goal. So now they cut the lead to 7. Then the Eagles go, I think they get the interception that Jalen Hurts threw. Then the Broncos go down the field again, and 4th and 1, Melvin Gordon fumbles. So the point is that it looks like the Eagles kicked Denver's tail by the final score, but that very easily, a few things go the other way, and I know this is every NFL game.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that game was actually closer in competition than the game looked, but the Eagles this is like 4 weeks ago. It's the Eagles that are falling all over themselves and giving the ball away. And this time it was the opponent, which is why I think this is such a good win. I don't think Denver was horrendous yesterday. It just made 3 or 4 really bad plays.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right, Jeff. And obviously it takes us to the offense found itself. The defense chipped in. You got a blocked field goal. So you had a 3-layered win to get you to 4-6, and now you're a game out. And the question, I guess, looks at, hey, I know I tweet out, hey, they're in the playoff race, and people give me the Jim Mora response every single week. And I've been like, hey, I'm just giving you the facts. They're right in the mix here. Are they really in the mix here?
Yeah, you got to think there's 3 wild cards, right? So you know that whichever one doesn't get it between the Rams and the Cardinals is going to get number 1. And then you kind of got to erase that. I tend to think the Vikings, who seem to hang on, they do this every year. They go they get 8 or 9 wins and they start off bad. They'll probably get the second wild card. I haven't checked out their schedule, but they have enough talent to beat some decent teams. They just beat the Chargers on the road yesterday. And then it's a free-for-all. It literally could be anybody. It could be the Panthers, who the Eagles have a tiebreaker over. It could be the Falcons, who the Eagles have a tiebreaker over. It could be the Eagles. It could be Washington or New York. And obviously that'll all be decided in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And those should be interesting games. I'm getting a kick out of the people who are saying like, oh, Washington and New York, that's 4 wins right there for the Eagles. And I'm like, those are not guaranteed wins. These teams are only 1 game behind the Eagles. Mm-hmm. And if you're like thinking the Eagles are finally clicking because they got a win over Denver, like Washington just beat Tampa Bay. The Giants beat the Raiders before going into the break. So to me, it's like these 3 teams are going to duke it out here over the next 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of what you said there. I think that the 6 and 7 spots are going to be wide open here, which makes this game against the Saints look very intriguing all of a sudden. You beat
That's
the
another
Saints.
team I forgot to mention.
Yeah, well, the Saints are in there right now. They are the 6th seed at 5-4, and Carolina is the current 7th seed right now at 4-5. So that's where you sit one game behind them. You obviously have beaten Carolina. You've beaten Atlanta. If you beat the Saints, you would have all 3 of those teams in the head-to-head matchup. So,
right. Carolina should be 5-5 actually, right? Because if they have the Eagles would have be over them, but I think Carolina won yesterday to go to 5-5. Yeah.
So Carolina is the current number 7 seed in the NFC. That was a big win for them because obviously you go in thinking they're not going to beat Arizona. Then Arizona goes very short-handed, and they didn't have Hopkins. They didn't have Murray yesterday.
Right.
Yet. So Carolina's 5-5.
They play Washington next week. So I mean, it's like this is why I said the next 4 weeks everything's going to the laundry's going to settle itself out here.
Oh yeah, this is going to be interesting here. But hey, look, it seemingly. This team is going to be playing some meaningful football for almost the rest of the season, you would think.
Yeah, and you know what? To be honest with you, that's good. It's good for the development. It's kind of hard not to be playing meaningful football if you're in the NFL these days. I mean, there's probably only 2 NFC teams that are not playing meaningful football from here on out, right? I mean, that's the Lions and
that's it.
Is there anybody else that's completely no? It's just one team that's not playing meaningful football. So
right, everybody is either 3-6 or better. And if you're 3-6 right now, you're within a game and a half of the playoff spot. I mean, really, you are. Chicago is the 15th seed right now. They are 3-6. Now, I don't know what their tie-breaking situation is, but 3-6 would put you, a game and a half behind Carolina.
It's a world of parity, and everybody except the Lions are living in it.
That's right. Yep. 5-4 New Orleans, 5-5 Carolina. They are your current 6 and 7 seeds. Minnesota's 4-5. Atlanta's 4-5. Philadelphia is 4-6. And remember, Philadelphia still has their bye week coming up. That will be in week 14. The Eagles' bye week is week 14 this year, so they still have a bye week.
Yeah, trust me, I got it marked. I've been looking forward to it.
All right, check out the Inside the Birds podcast as they go a lot deeper in the Eagles' win. This is Football at 4. He is Geoff Mosher, and, of course, Football at 4 every day at 4 o'clock right here on the Sports Bash. All right, Moshe, so we'll talk to you on Wednesday, pal.
All right, brother, have a good one.
All right, that's Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. Tomorrow, Andrew DeCecco is here.